our agenda and where to find things on our website. But if you go to the Spenard Community Council website, and I know I just saw a question in the chat of if there's a phone number to call into, we do have a phone number that you can call into if you can't use the link. And that's the same every month, and it's posted at the top of our website. So these are the call-in numbers. We also have quick links here for the agenda, the meeting minutes from the last meeting, any handouts that we have. We also have a page for that. And we do get monthly updates from Representative Matt Clayman and Senator Elvie Gray Jackson and a few others that we do post here. So please check that out. And if we have any draft resolutions, we also consider that here. And we will talk about Trick or Treat Fish Creek, and we did talk about it. And so just showing the adorable family celebrating Trick or Treat. So with that, I'm going to move just over to our minutes from the last meeting, which was in November. We've had those posted and emailed out, as well as our agenda for tonight. So we first ask for approval of our consent agenda, which are the minutes and the current agenda. Tonight, we don't have a legislative report unless somebody has joined us from the legislature. And I wasn't able to confirm anyone from the police department, but otherwise the agenda is as is posted. We'll talk with Cameron about the budget. We have a presentation about Chugachwe Elements reports. We'll talk about a Spenard task force and then discuss the pot shop, a new shop in Spenard. Thank you everyone for the trick or treat event, and we'll move into community announcements. And that's a good time for folks to just take a couple minutes to either introduce yourself if you're new to the council, or if you have issues going on in your neighborhood or events or things you want to share with folks, that's a great time for it. And then we do door prizes and we adjourn. And then we've also added a treasurer's report to the end of our meeting. This month, it just has the expenses that we spent down this past month, and we'll continue to refine this since this is new for us, but wanted to make sure folks see that as well, and we'll point to that. So that's my quick overview. And with that, I will entertain a motion to approve our consent agenda, which are the minutes for last month and this month's agenda.
Move to approve.
I second.
Thanks, Tom. Thanks, Irene. Any changes or edits? Okay. With that, we will go ahead. All right, so I'm going to stop my share screen. Thank you, Meg, for putting in the chat just a sign-in sheet. That's how you can sign in, and we can make sure to pull your name at the end of the meeting for the door prize. You have to be present to win, but fill out that Google form. It's a really helpful way for us to keep track of what's going on and who's here in our meetings. So quickly, I'm just going to introduce our executive board and then move us through reports. So just as I see it, we've got Irene Person-Gamble, who serves as our vice president. We've got Julie Leonard and Peggy Oth and Tani Sakarichia, oh, I muddled it, who serve as our auditors. Meg Milkey serves as our secretary. And I'm not sure if Arena's here. Yeah, she is. Arena is here. She serves as our treasurer. So thank you, executive board. You're the best. All right, so I'm just going to take a quick scan to see if we have any of our legislators here. Not tonight, but we do have folks set for the next few meetings. So I'm going to just move us ahead to our local reports, and we're going to start with the school board report because we'll have our assembly report moves into the next discussion item. So I'm going to open the floor to Margot Bellamy. Welcome, Margot.
Oh, thank you, guys. Glad to be here. Well, we've got lots of news tonight. I'm sure you've heard already that our superintendent is retiring, and oh, thought my camera was off. So we will be organizing and coming back with the plan to fill that position. You can anticipate that the plan will include community input from internal input. Every stakeholder imaginable will be able to give input into the process. So I'll bring that information back to you. I also have a document that I do a little report. I can put it in the, I can give it to, who is the secretary? Anyway, I'll put it in the chat and you, Meg, yes. I'll put it in the chat and you can maybe share it however you guys share. The other news is that as of today, we opened several vaccination clinics for anyone over 5 years old. And if parents want to have their children vaccinated. So those are what we call, they're not really pop-up clinics, but they will kind of rotate from location to location. And so I've put that link, the link to where those locations are, I've included that in the report. Let's see, we met, our last meeting was just Tuesday, past Tuesday. And actually it was Monday. It was one of those days that we were trying to not conflict with the assembly. Didn't work out because I think they met on the same day. But there'll be a couple of times a year that we will meet on a Monday and instead of our regular first and third Tuesday. So our, just trying to get my form here. So our next meeting will be the 16th. And at that meeting, we are hoping to finalize our bond and capital improvement package. They will go to the assembly. One of the hot items or hot topic items this time around was Inlet View Elementary. There was some concern and division in the community. We have responded as best we can to those and are continuing to respond. That prompted the administration to move the proposed rebuild for that school to the 2024 bond. Remember, we're only doing bonds every 2 years. And then that sparked interest from the community. So just last Monday, the board directed the administration to go back and redo the plan that it proposed that to include Inlet View in the 2022 bond. Now, what that's going to look like, I do not know. We are anticipating that it will come at, we're going to have to do some moving some projects around, but it should come in at about 100 million, maybe slightly less or more. So we won't know that until we get the new package from the administration. Additionally, we have scheduled our work session on Tuesday the 16th, and we have a joint assembly work session that we're going to do on November 19th. The November 19th work session is to just discuss the mayor's budget and the impact to ASD. So we're looking forward to that. We are continuing to monitor our goals and guardrails. Coming up on the 16th, we will be monitoring our life and career, college, career, and life ready. CCL is the acronym, College, Career, and Life Readiness Goal. And that will be on the 16th as well. So we are hoping to have a really robust conversation around our goals and our guardrails. And other than that, we are continuing with the free testing sites. Our ASD COVID dashboard is still up and available and being maintained daily. We are hopefully, excuse me, hopefully we're ending the temporary suspension of some of our transportation. We have gotten some drivers hired, trained and hired. It is alleviating some of the burden, but not all of it. So we are still in, and I think we're now in our third rotation, or maybe it's the fourth rotation of suspensions, suspended routes. The only other thing I have is that we have our Alaska Native, this is Alaska Native American Indian History Month. And you should see lots of wonderful things going on in our schools. Your kids, if you have kids or grandkids, they should be coming home with lots of wonderful, exciting learnings from what they're doing in school this month. we just ended Red Ribbon Week at the end for October. And I really, kids are amazing with, the schools are amazing with what they allow kids to do. The kids are amazing with what they actually do bring to school and relative to, you know, living a drug-free life. So that's it for me. I can respond to questions. I see that.
Yeah, thanks, Margot. It looks like we have a question from Tani, and if others have questions, feel free to put in the chat, raise your hand, or wave or unmute. But go ahead, Tani.
Hi, Tani.
Yeah, so I know you said you have a work session set up to talk more about the mayor's budget, but I'm curious if you could kind of answer your understanding of what the impact will be on his line item 157 and 158, which is one, transferring 50% pool costs back to the Anchorage School District, and the other is seeking the cost recovery for the SRO officers. And the reason I ask is because the last opportunity for public comment on the budget is next Tuesday. So we may not have time to wait for you to have your work session separately.
Our work session will be, the work session with the Muni is on the 19th. The work session, the board is on the 15th.
Yeah, so both of those come after our last opportunity for public testimony on this budget. So can you just share if the initial conversations with the school board around those two items?
Well, first of all, we're in a process right now to determine if the SROs are indeed what the board and our community want to maintain. The board has asked the superintendent to gather some data, and that data, hopefully we will have it. I know we won't have it this week, maybe the end of the week or the first of next week. It's all, the timing is absolutely, it's a tight time frame. So the board has not really discussed the mayor's budget to the extent as to whether we even want to continue with the SROs. But that cost shift is a significant one. And, you know, whether we spend 2.3 million on SROs, or do we spend them on trained counselors and do we reimagine it? So we really have not had that discussion. And I know the timing on it is absolutely awful, but it's my understanding that the assembly won't do its final thing until somewhere between November 23rd and December 10th, if I'm correct, Cameron. So I'm hoping that our work session with even though it will be after the public input, the board has not come to any decision as to, I think it's probably split among the board, but we have not really had a public discussion on whether we even want SROs. We felt we needed more information from the administration, and that's what we're waiting on right now.
Great, thank you. Any other questions for Margot? All right, I'm not seeing any. Thank you so much for coming tonight.
Thank you.
Great, well, I'm just gonna keep us rolling with our airport report. We have John Johansson. We can see you, we can hear you. And we also have who's called in, Megan Peters, who's new to the airport as the communications manager. So take it away.
Thank you. I apologize for last afternoon when I couldn't.
Sorry, John, you might have to mute something. Do you have a phone and a computer on?
Oh, everything
No,
else
I muted Megan because she had some feedback going on, but John, you're good.
I'm good?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. I was worried I was screwing up for another week, another month. I don't have very much. We're still dealing with coronavirus at the airport. We still have free vaccinations and free testing. I should say Department of Health and Social Services does. And I just got my booster vaccine, my Moderna booster vaccine last week. So they have both Moderna and Pfizer booster vaccines. And please use the cell phone parking lot. Even with traffic going down, we still have congestion problems at the curbside by the baggage claims. Our commercial curb, we are restricting access to our commercial curb, which are the lanes that the taxi cabs and the shuttles and the buses, et cetera, use. And so we're putting up some gate arms that will only be usable by those folks that have business being there. So the general public won't be able to operate along the commercial curb. Lakewood Seaplane Base, we're waiting for the ice to freeze. Usually it's ready to fly on by early December. So we got at least another month before that will be usable by aircraft. So please stay off it and remind your friends and family to stay off of it. We're having a Lakewood user group meeting. At that meeting, which will be Monday, November 8th, this coming Monday at 2 p.m. It's on Microsoft Teams. There are a couple of contacts where you can find how to log into that meeting, but there's going to be a discussion about some general aviation tie downs that are going to be built by the FAA to replace those that are being displaced by a new air traffic control tower that's being planned in about 2 or 3 years. So there will be a discussion about the plans for that by FAA. And then we're looking for a whole bunch of employees, as we always are, mostly maintenance folks, heavy equipment operators, both heavy equipment maintenance and building maintenance specialists. So that's all I have. Yes, and Megan Peters, who was with Department of Public Safety for 15 years, I believe, is now our new public information / communications person. So we're very glad to have her.
I'm gonna try and talk without having bad reception here. Can you guys hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, good. I'm so sorry about the bad feedback and my computer problems. I'll figure it out before next meeting. Just so you all know, my name is Megan Peters. I come from the Department of Public Safety, as John said. I am new at the airport. I've been there for about a month. I'm looking forward to be your contact for whatever questions and concerns you have at the airport. I don't have an official business card yet. My email address for anybody that is interested in it is Megan, MEGAN .Peters, PETERS @alaska.gov. I will put it in the chat along with my office phone number. So whenever you guys have any questions or concerns, please feel free to shoot them over my way. And I might not have an answer for you right away, but I promise you I will do my best to track down what the answer is, whatever it may be.
Great, thank you for joining us. We do have a couple questions for you all. First is from Sarah Prescott. Any word on movement of the moose underneath the artwork by the Sea Concourse? Is the moose moving?
Oh, I don't know if the moose is moving. Do you know?
There is no plan to move the moose at this time.
Why would we move the moose?
Because I'll let the folks who asked the question probably explain the reasons for wanting to move the moose.
Okay.
So Sarah, did you want to add any background?
Just that, I can't even remember if it was pre-pandemic or after we started meeting virtually, but there's some artwork on the ceiling above the moose that's over by the Sea Concourse. And nobody really knows it's there because the moose is in the way. So we had talked about it at this meeting, and I've traveled a couple times and he's still there and I love him, but we want to see him and the artwork. So that's all. But thanks.
So I will have to take a closer look at what is on the ceiling, but for clarification, are you talking about what's directly on the ceiling, or are you talking about the native artwork that's on the 3rd floor?
It's
On the
I think
ceiling.
it's the mosaic. Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah, thanks for remembering that, Sarah. I don't know when that was, but we did talk about it. Okay, we've got Peggy and Bob with the question.
Hi, John. I
Hi.
know that the airport is doing a lot of work with the Sand Lake Community Council regarding all that building that's going on in the South Park. And one of the things, because we're not privy to any of those discussions, are they discussing what's going to happen with all that traffic that's going to be coming from that area? Are they going to make sure that it's not pouring down Spenard Road, because it's not really built for that much extra traffic? We get quite a bit of traffic anyway on Spenard near International, a lot of people that are coming from the south, a lot of it from the airport. And I'm just concerned that it's really going to overburden Spenard Road if they're not directing that commercial traffic to go down International as opposed to going down Spenard once all those buildings are put up.
Are you speaking about one development in particular, Peggy?
No, I mean, my understanding is, isn't there quite a bit of development going in where the Air National Guard used to be on that area, in that area? Isn't that where you're?
Are you speaking of on Raspberry Road?
Yes,
I believe they're speaking about the IC Alaska development.
yes.
So IC Alaska is actually putting together a website to keep people informed on it. They're still working on it and they're hoping to launch the website in the next couple days. We can make sure that we send that website to you guys at Spenard. I do not know off the top of my head what the traffic plan is. I know initially they were going to have an access point off of Raspberry into the development that was separate from what was already there, but it's my understanding that that is no longer occurring. But I don't know where they think the trucks are going to go. I would personally be surprised to hear if it was going up and down Spenard, because that's not a major artery.
You'd be surprised.
Yeah, and depending on traffic incidents and other things, I'm sure that there's always something that happens. We can pose the question to the developer if they have any insight on what's going to happen with that, and try and get back to you guys with it.
I would appreciate that, please.
Thank you.
Oh, and John, did they,
Yes.
is that removal of the DMV at the North Terminal, is that permanent, that they took that out?
Yes.
I actually have a meeting with them in the next couple weeks, so I'm not sure if that's permanent or not yet.
Well, would you let us know if they open that again? That's very helpful.
We could. They reached out to me just last week, and I have a meeting on my calendar set up. And so I will most definitely let you guys know if they reopen the DMV there. I'll be in contact with John about it.
All right, thank you.
Great, thank you. Good questions. Anything else for John and Megan? Okay, thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Okay, I will move us into our assembly report. We have Cameron Presverdia here. And because the mayor's proposed budget is out, we also wanted to ask him for, in addition to his regular report out on assembly issues, to just focus on how there may be impacts to Spenard on that as well. So we've got a little bit more time now to share your update, and then we can have some questions. Welcome.
Thanks, Lindsay, and good to see everyone. Yeah, I've been so focused on the budget. It took me a moment to sort of think about what other things I wanted to talk about. But so just a few updates, and then we can get into the budget. And as always, I think most of the time should be spent on answering your questions, so that I'm focusing on the things that are most important to you. Just a few things. I serve as chair of the Health Policy Committee. We had a Health Policy Committee meeting today. we had a COVID update. There is some good news. The reproduction rate, which is essentially the transmissibility rate of COVID, the way that works is that if it's you want it to be below a 1.0, and so for the first time in a long time, it is below 1.0. It's a 0.94, so that's a good thing. And the vaccines continue to happen. Testing at one point really got reduced. We passed some emergency funding to put testing back in place so that it was back up to the rates that it previously done. We've done a number of emergency funding transfers to get some of the systems back into place. So one of the questions moving forward is making sure that we have the funding available to continue to offer the services that we need around the pandemic. The bad news as it relates to that report is, the hospital rates continue to rise, and our hospital capacity is very, very high. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to put in the chat the link to, there we go. And then Lindsay, I guess you can send it through. This link has the latest 2 COVID update reports for the city. And so Lindsay, if you can forward those, that will give you the most recent information on COVID. The other items other than the budget, if you've been paying attention, you've seen there's been quite a bit of conflict between the administration and the assembly. It has created a really difficult environment for us to get work done. On Wednesday, we actually got through our entire meeting for the first time in a long time, and we actually got through 2 months of business that had been held up because of all of the challenging interactions that we've been having. I don't have time tonight to go into all the reasons that's going on, but I would just say that it's really unfortunate and challenging, and I don't necessarily think that that's going to change anytime soon. There's some real disagreement about who has control over the chambers, who has control over a variety of things that allow us to move our meetings forward. Another issue I wanted to just update you on, I'm also chair of the Public Safety Committee. There's a lot of things going on there, but one of the issues that continues to move forward is body-worn cameras. We have, I also want to put into the chat for you to look at a couple of things. One is that until November 4th, I believe, 4th or 6th, is that the APD is looking for comments on the current version of the body-worn camera policy. And I'm going to put in the chat the link for you to make comments about it. What I would say is that there is still a pretty big distance between what the municipal attorney and the administration wants and what we're hearing from the public, and even many of the leadership in APPD in terms of transparency and releasing information. We're pretty far apart, and so the more feedback from the public, the better. The plan is right now to once that public feedback is done, to put that all together and to release that publicly so that you can all see what the public said, and then to call a meeting between the Public Safety Committee, the Public Safety Commission, and do a work session to really work through that policy one more time, and then to give our recommendations to the administration. The key piece is that it's not the role of the assembly to approve the policy, it's the role of the administration. But because of the importance of this topic and the public interest in it, we really want to make sure that the administration hears from the public on what they want. And so more to come on that in terms of body-worn cameras. One other update is I had an opportunity recently to go out to the port and see the new PCT, the Petroleum Cement Terminal. It's pretty amazing, and they are almost finished. They are essentially on budget and on time. And so that's a really important thing that's finally getting to its completion. And then the revitalization of the port overall is still moving forward, and we're still trying to work hard to make sure that continues. I think you all know how important the port is to Alaska and to Anchorage, and making sure that port is revitalized. What we know now is that that they're actually having to move some of the large cranes into certain areas because they're worried about the stability of those docks, and that within the next 3 to 5 years, the concern around that is going to increase even more. So the urgency to replace those grows every year. So that's just a really important piece. And then just, I know that some of the members here were following this over on Connors Bog, even though it's not necessarily in Spenard. There was a couple of items that came before the assembly recently on doing some land use changes that take the sort of next step towards establishing that area over by Raspberry, Minnesota, as a snow dump site. And so the short story is that the current dump site that is owned by the airport is, we have short-term leases there. We've not been able to establish a long-term lease with the airport. And so we continue to move forward to look at establishing a new dump site for the snow in Connors Bog. Lots of concern around that. The Sand Lake Community Council did approve it. It did sort of vote to approve it to move forward, but there's still a lot of community concern around that. So I'm watching that pretty close. Those are probably a few key updates. The rest I have is really centered around the budget. So do you want me to pause for questions and then move on to the budget?
Yeah, I think so. I'm not seeing any questions, but I did want to follow up just on the Northwood property. I know we had a lot of emails back and forth. We're trying to figure out what we can do here, but do you have any updates about cleaning up that site?
I had that on my agenda as well. And thank you, Peggy, and so many of you who've been reaching out to me about that. Unfortunately, I don't have any of updates. We've been sending emails even today, sent emails to the chief of police, to the city manager, to the Parks and Rec director. One of the things just to be aware of is the new reorganization of the administration. Both the reorganization and I think just their sort of functioning right now is forcing essentially all communication to go through the municipal manager. So all communication with any department has to go through the municipal manager. So it's really creating a bottleneck in terms of communication. But we have not heard, and we continue to push that issue. And my hope is that we will hear something soon and get some action done on that. Both Austin and I have been working hard at trying to communicate with the city to figure out how we can improve that situation. So, but no, we weren't able to get any update tonight. Thank you, Lindsay, for sending that email. I sent 3 or 4 following yours and still haven't heard anything back.
Yeah, thank you. I know we have a few folks who want to talk on it, but Geneva is also an aide to Assembly Member Austin Quinn Davidson. So let me turn it over to you, Geneva, and then we can go to a comment from Richard, and then Allison can also share her thoughts. But go ahead, Geneva.
Yeah, I kind of have the same news as Cameron, that we've been trying to send emails back and forth and just haven't really been seeing that response. But Austin has sent an email specifically to the administration to ask about a fund that we have for like nuisance properties like Northwood property, and basically what criteria is needed for that fund to be able to clean up these properties. So hopefully to get funding for this from the administration to be able to clean up. So we're still waiting for an update on that, but that's kind of the development we've had.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thank you. And just to share a comment from Richard that the Northwood property, we've talked about it 2 months ago in September, and it's just getting worse. There are fires that happen on the property. You can see from the observation deck at Northwood Park, and more beer cans, trash, and then 2 new cars on the lot today being stripped or junked. So it's an issue that is just getting worse, and I know we've been trying to get some action on this since July. Allison, did you want to speak on this? I kind of lost you, but maybe you put your hand down.
I just wanted to ask why we haven't been able to get a citation issued. And I wanted to clarify for Cameron and Geneva if they weren't aware that we had already offered to pay for a 20-yard dumpster and have volunteers to go clean up the trash, not eradicate the camps, but that the property owner refused that offer. So I'm wondering why there haven't been any citations issued. Cora Weaver admitted that it does qualify for basically an illegal solid waste disposal at site at this point. So if anybody has any information on that, that'd be great.
I don't have any information on that. All I can tell you is that I think that, I think that the push is to continue to try to put pressure on the administration to respond to us. I did notice that the chief of police had not been copied in many of the communication up till now. And so I emailed him earlier this evening, and he's pretty responsive. So I'm hoping to hear back from him. If I do hear anything later tonight or in the next few days, I'll send that information over to Lindsay so that she can share that. And I do believe that the question has been posed: why hasn't there been a citation? So we'll, as soon as we hear back, we'll let you know.
Thank you. It looks like Tani has a question, and then we'll move into discussion on budget. But go ahead, Tani.
It's quick, I swear. But Cora Weaver, you can't mention that name without asking a follow-up question. Have you and Austin Quinn Davidson figured out just how many code enforcement officers we have currently, and how many are dedicated to doing code enforcement for the community? Not necessarily for COVID, but actually boots on the ground, because I continue to observe that to be a major issue. And I'd love to know just how many people are boots on the ground helping out with it.
I don't have the answer to that, but I can email Jack Frost and ask. So
we'd love one of them to visit one of these meetings.
I would agree with that. Okay, thanks.
Go do a tour of the property. But Cameron, do you want to go ahead and just share a little bit more about the budget, and then we can have a discussion and questions on that?
Sure. I do see Tom.
Oh, Tom.
We can do him a question.
Yeah, go ahead, Tom.
Yeah, Tawny's thing about Cora Weaver, that's been a problem for Spenard for well over 20 years. And I just got a response back from the administration on a letter that I wrote about code enforcement. And I cited a number of problems in Spenard that have been there for over 20 years. And we never get a response. And it used to be that we could call them. And now since COVID happened, we can't call them anymore. So we never get even an email response. And I've asked, like Chris Constant, I said, we need more budget for code enforcement, and we need municipal code changed so that code enforcement can initiate a complaint, because right now it's only the citizens that can initiate complaints. And it's just, well, I think Peg Oth could tell you too, that this has been a frustrating thing for the Spenard Community Council since, I guess, the early 90s, maybe further back than that.
Thanks, Tom. You brought it back to budget, but it looks like Peggy and Bob have something to add also.
Yeah, of course, I want to reiterate, Tom's correct. It's been definitely a problem for the last 20 years, if not between 25 and 30. But my husband and I did go to an assembly hearing one time, and it probably was about 20 years ago, and gave testimony asking the assembly to increase the number of officers and not to slash the budget. And they did. So I know it can be done. And I'm really hoping, as Tom says, we need help with these issues. And I agree with him that some of these complaints need to be generated. It just amazes me that an officer can go right by a derelict building and can't go back to the office and just go ahead and start a complaint. A lot of people are afraid to make complaints because they think that it gets out into the general public or to the person that the complaint is being lodged against. So there's some timidity about that. And I think it would probably help in some of these situations where nothing's being done.
Thanks, Peggy.
Okay. This is a to be continued topic. And every month we'll probably check in on it. But go ahead, Cameron, on the municipal budget.
Okay. It's a challenge to even know where to start. Well, let me just start by saying that if you read over any of the budget materials, you'll see that the mayor's intent is to cut spending and to lower property taxes and to look at ways of making the municipality function more efficiently. So I think that that's the focus that he has. That being said, there's a lot to be concerned about with this budget, and you know, we on the Assembly are, you know, working really hard to talk with as many people as we can to figure out how to respond to this budget. Let me just say a few things sort of overall. The budget process. So we introduced it for public comment on November 3rd. It will come back up on November 9th for public comment. That will be, unless something gets extended, that would be the last sort of time for public comment on the budget. November 19th is when the Assembly members bring their amendments forward. So if there are amendments that you'd like me or Austin to bring forward, we need that information before November 19th. We're working on lots of amendments, as you can probably imagine, but that's the time frame. The budget comes up for debate and discussion and potential approval on November 23rd. It's hard to imagine that it would get passed on that day, knowing how many concerns there are around this budget. Just to give you some history, in past, it has taken a month to work through it, and so we'll see what happens. But that's the sort of timeline at this point. I would say that there are a few key pieces that I wanted to make sure. One of the big pieces is the use of alcohol tax. There is clearly in this new budget using alcohol tax to supplement general government funds, which is clearly a violation of that tax. And so that's going to be a really difficult, painful process to pull that back out. I'll give you an example. There are 10 pivotal positions in the public health department that are in this budget being funded by that. So the alcohol tax sort of runs through a lot of the challenges that we're seeing, from the health department to the mobile crisis team to the Anchorage Police Department. And so I'll hit that a little bit more moving through. The issue around the mobile crisis team, which has been positioned in the Anchorage Fire Department, which is proposed to move over to the Anchorage Police Department, and it's essentially set to be cut significantly. Huge concern if you've been following the work of both the passage of the alcohol tax, the development of Crisis Now as a new system to really address mental health in Alaska, and the development of this mobile crisis team to relieve first responders, to provide the right kind of service to folks who are in need, and to really put one of the key pieces in this new system. This change is concerning, to say the least. So we have a work session specifically on the mobile crisis team next week on Thursday. I believe it's the 12th. Let me just double check that real quick. No, it's next week on the, sorry here, let me just get this right. On the 12th. Yes, it's on the 12th. It's on November 12th. It's going to be at 1 o'clock on November 12th. And there's also a work session specifically on the alcohol tax on November 12th at 2:10 p.m. So both of those items are going to be there. There's a lot of work happening to try to respond to that. Another issue that's really concerning is the cut in development. Serious cuts to building inspectors and project managers. This is going to cause more delays, especially at a time when we're trying to sort of spark economic development. As many of you know, there is this huge reorganization of almost over 400 positions within the municipality are being moved. Essentially, a lot of the departments are being put under the municipal manager, which is kind of concerning based on even the conversation we had tonight, but just how that's going to work. And one of those moves is the library being moved under parks. And from my perspective, this diminishes the role of the library and really is concerning around things like early education and literacy and a variety of things. So that's going to be another topic that we're going to talk about. Lots of things, cut to pre-K funding by $1 million, cuts to community grants that funds prevention and providers, victims of violence. There are cuts to the data systems technician to the police department. There are cuts to overtime in both police and fire, which don't seem realistic at all based on what we've seen over the last five years. And so really big concerns there. I wanted to hit specifically a few others. AEDC, the Anchorage Economic Development Corporation, they're being cut by $250,000. That is funding that really is focused towards economic development. So we're worried about that as well, especially now at a time when we want to be investing in that and really getting our economy and our businesses back running. In terms of the capital budget, I know that there was an interest in attaching the feasibility study on daylighting Fish Creek. We still need to get, Austin, I still needed to get an amount of that so that we can get that into there so that we can add it probably to the drainage bond. Lots of changes to the capital budget. Let's see. So I've got here a list of them, but the Midtown pedestrian safety traffic calming projects, a lot of them have been pushed out further. This is for the delays that I don't think we want. The AMAT Spenard Road rehabilitation reduced from 2.7 million to 400K. The removal of the Midtown corridor improvement on Denali Street and Fireweed. And so that's another one we're worried about. Let's see, Glacier, we're not worried about that one for you guys. And then the only other thing I would say is that we're formulating budget amendments to be able to address each one of these. The reorganization is something that I've received a lot of emails about. There's some question at this point about what we can do about that and what role we can play in terms of actually pushing back on that. More to come on that. We've got an attorney working on sort of what steps we can take to push back on some of the reorg. Let's see. What else do I want to say?
Okay.
I think that's probably a good start, and then let's just start with questions.
Yeah, and we just have a few minutes for questions because we've had lots of good discussion so far, but Tawny, looks like you have a question.
Yeah, I have a question, and I have been digging into all of this for a little bit now, but I'm a little concerned about the proposed cut to municipal attorneys. At least that's how I read it, including one clerk. And when going through the document that's on the budget website that goes into detail about, it appears that it's both from the criminal division as well as the civil division. And they have had, they have low numbers for 2020 because all of the courts, and in the first 2 quarters of 2021, because all the courts have been closed for COVID. So can you speak to, one, what the impact would be for crime and safety in our, I mean, we have a lot of issues in our neighborhood, and I think that's important to many folks here, but if there's been a rationale given, I guess might be this, I know we're falling behind on time, but maybe if there's been a rationale by the mayor.
Yeah, so we brought this up during the budget discussion. The municipal attorney, Patrick Burke, essentially the rationale was the work of the municipal attorney's office ebbs and flows. And so that they believe that they can manage this reduction, that these two positions are currently not filled. And so it makes it easier to make the cut at this time. But there was significant concern voiced by assembly members based on some of the things that you just said, that our previous year numbers are not a good reflection of what's coming in the next year, and that we're positioning ourselves to not be able to meet the need. And I would just say that's true across many areas, that many of these areas are cuts that are scary because we know that we're not going to be able to actually meet that budget. And I would just add real quick that there is no municipal budget for body cameras, and knowing that is going to be a significant increase in work, but they just have not budgeted for it. And so those two attorneys that you talked about, huge concern, body cameras added on top of that. I believe that we're going to be severely understaffed and need to put more funds into that budget.
Great, thank you. I'm not seeing other questions on my end. Sorry, I've got other chats going that I'm trying to keep track of. But that was the big list and a big broad overview. When our executive board was meeting to try to plan this meeting, we wanted to spend a little bit more time on the budget, because every year we try to think about if there are actions or opportunities for the council to weigh in on, and we just weren't able to put together any kind of a resolution, because we were trying to figure out, well, how do you keep it narrow to Spenard and make sure we meet everybody's needs. So we just wanted to have the discussion, and I put in the chat different ways for people to comment individually so that folks can get engaged on these issues and whatever issues you have. But if folks have topics or things that you want the council to consider, you can always reach out to us. Looks like we have one more question from Karen, and then we will move on to our presentation. Go ahead, Karen.
Okay, thanks. Yeah, I'll make this really quick. Just because the feasibility study was mentioned for the amendment, I just wanted to have some kind of, I don't know, clarification from you, Cameron, about do you and Austin, like maybe we should communicate, because it was Friends of Fish Creek sent a letter to the assembly, and I know that I did a presentation last month, and so I don't want to put words in the Spenard Community Council's mouth on that, but I just wanted to see, should we like set up a meeting with you all? It sounds like you needed some type of a cost estimate, like a more determined cost estimate on that. Is that correct?
Yeah, I would like to have a conversation offline about
Okay,
that.
great,
Both about that, and then Lindsay, with your executive group, we're coming up with a number of capital project concerns specifically in the west side, and then Spenard specifically. And some of the folks from the previous administration are helping us, develop some of that. So it would be good to have both those meetings, both specifically about the feasibility study, and then any capital projects, whether it's the ones that are being pushed out, or whether it's anything else that we need to be aware of at this time. This is the time to have that conversation to get that in front of the administration.
Great, I love capital projects.
Yeah.
Thank you. Okay, thank you so much. And just appreciate everybody's attention to this topic.
Yeah, and please feel free to reach out to me. I'm available if you want to share any other comments or email me. That would be great. Thanks.
Great. And so we've got another topic. We're going to shift gears and talk about Chugach Way. We've, I think, had just introduced this topic before for the council. And so this time we're going to have a little bit more information, different options and alternatives for Chugach Way. So I'm going to introduce Lakita with Dowell, and maybe there are other folks on your team, but take it away, Lakita.
Great, thank you. It's just me tonight. I'm going to share my screen really quick. So my name's Laquita. I am the project manager for this team or for this project with Dowell, and I'm going to give you a little bit of update about what we've been up to and hopefully get some feedback. So at the beginning of this project, we came up with a project vision, which was to identify a roadway improvement to support opportunities for redevelopment with an emphasis on safety, access, and multimodal facilities in the area. And that's been our guiding vision throughout this project. And the goal of the project is to come up with either one project or a series of projects that can be then implemented and move forward into design. So just a little bit about the study area. I know most of you are familiar with this, but just a reminder that the study area is from Minnesota and Spenard to the west, Arctic to the east, 40th to the south, and 36th Avenue to the north. So the first thing that we did was we put together an existing condition summary report, and we were really looking at all the available information with traffic numbers, studies that had been done, plans that have been put together. And then we put them together in kind of these broad categories, which were the built environment or built features, social and economic and community characteristics, traffic conditions, and then the natural environment. And then some of the developments in the area, the map that you see, the yellow highlighted properties are properties in the project area that are owned by CHA. And probably most of you have seen the development start there at the corner of Chugach Way and Spenard. And then the area that is highlighted in blue is owned by JJ Brooks. And the large blue area was a properties that JJ owns that were recently rezoned in preparation for a mixed-use development. So throughout the project, we've been trying to make sure that we engage stakeholders just like you as much as we can. We have kind of looked at two groups. We have our institutional stakeholders, so our agencies, utilities, some of the major landholders in the area, and then of course, our residential stakeholders, all of you folks that we've mainly communicated with through the Spenard Community Council. Probably some of you folks were made aware of a survey that we put together to try to get your feedback. And probably one of the biggest things that came out of the survey was the need for pedestrian, bicycle, and multimodal facilities, not only along Chugach Way, but just to provide connectivity throughout the corridor. And so we used all this information to start coming up with alternatives that we're going to continue to refine and screen. And so I'm going to quickly run through the alternatives that we have so far. So the first alternative is called Bicycle Paradise. And this is really making sure that there's separated bicycle lanes and then also sidewalks on either side. And so some of the advantages of this cross-section is that it does provide bicycle lanes, it provides a separate place for pedestrians. One of the disadvantages is that it does probably have the greatest amount of right-of-way that's needed. Right now, along Chugach Way, there's anywhere from 30 to 45 feet of right-of-way, and this particular cross-section would need 43 feet of right-of-way. The next cross-section is pedestrian oasis. And so the idea behind this one was that we'd have a little bit wider sidewalks so that you'd have a buffer for pedestrians as well as potentially some snow storage area in the wintertime. It does not provide for the separated bicycle lanes. However, this could be signed and striped as a bicycle boulevard. One of the advantages of this cross section is it does have a narrow right of way of approximately 39 feet. Then we have what we're calling multimodal love. And so this was trying to have a cross section that didn't maybe have as big of a right-of-way need, but also facilitated bicyclists and other users. And so we have a multi-use pathway on one side, the sidewalk on the other, and then of course the travel lanes. This can easily, well, actually all of these alternatives can easily connect to the multimodal network that's there now and what's being developed as part of the Spenard Road project and other projects that are planned. It does have kind of a, what we would say, a moderate right-of-way need relative to the other alternatives. Then the other alternative that we're looking at is the Warnoff wandering. And so this is the Warnoff concept where vehicles and pedestrian and bicyclists share space. So within our municipal code, this particular cross section can only be used for approximately 500 feet. So right now we would be looking at having a cross section like this between Cope and Indiana. And the idea behind it is that it really provides an opportunity to have a space that can be activated throughout the year. So, you know, there's times when maybe it could even be shut off for like festivals and different things. It does provide an opportunity to have a sense of placemaking. And then this particular cross section that we're showing has planters that are placed in such a fashion as to create chicane, which slows traffic down and acts as traffic calming. The disadvantage is that it doesn't really give you that true separation between pedestrians, bicyclists, and vehicles. So you're all kind of sharing that space. And then on either side of Indiana and Cope Street, we would look at one of those other cross sections. So you'd kind of transition to a more traditional cross section. And then the last alternative that we're looking at is what we're calling moving motors. And really that's looking at changing the street classification. Right now, Chugach Way is considered a local street, and we would look to see if it makes sense to classify it as a neighborhood collector. And some of that's coming from the concerns that there'll be increased traffic as the area is further developed. The downside of doing a neighborhood collector is it really takes away the opportunity to have kind of some of the traffic calming elements and that kind of sense of place that we heard in the survey and through all the stakeholder engagement that we've had so far. It also, you know, has probably the widest cross section with code required, you know, 11-foot lanes and 5-foot shoulders and 5-foot sidewalks. And it also would increase the speed limit that's currently there. And then other opportunities that we're looking at is traffic calming. If it makes sense on any of these cross sections to have some traffic calming. What we heard from the survey results was that raised intersections would be the preferred traffic calming if we were to include any. And again, that Warnoff cross section that we showed had an opportunity to create a chicane. Other feedback that we got from the survey was to look for opportunities for multimodal connection, honoring the historic Fish Creek through the Greenbelt, improving connectivity to 40th Avenue, and really just improving connectivity throughout where we can. And then looking at amenities and placemaking, looking at gateway features, lighting, bollard benches, bicycle parking. And then other opportunities, we had some comments about were there opportunities to provide not only snow storage within the roadway, but were there pockets of land that made sense to have for snow storage during the winter, and maybe they could be used in other ways during the rest of the year. And then maybe looking at on-street parking. And so, like I said, we're developing these alternatives and trying and getting feedback on them. And then we're also starting to screen them. And so the criteria that we've put together so far are kind of in these broad categories. So the high priority ones is that they need to have pedestrian and bicycle facilities of some sort, and probably some traffic calming elements. Feasibility, of course, we need to make sure they can be traversed for emergency access. Looking at the right-of-way needs, because we understand the right-of-way is narrow. And then of course, snow removal options and utility infrastructure, you know, what kind of impacts are we going to have on utility relocations, if any. And then additional things that we're considering are multimodal connectivity, vehicular access and connectivity, and of course, aesthetic placemaking, If there's opportunities for multimodal facilities that have a snow element, and then of course parking capacity. So next steps. So we're spending the rest of this month and into December kind of finishing up our work on those cross sections, coming up with a preferred alternative or alternatives, and gathering input along the way. And then our goal is to finalize the Chugach Transportation Elements Report by the end of December. So we'll probably be seeing all of you folks again in December with another update. And then after the project's completed, then the municipality would take those recommendations that are in that report and be able to move them forward into design. And it may be that they're, the idea is to fashion it in such a way that it could be either moved forward as one project or multiple projects depending on funding. So I want to thank you for your time, and I'm happy to answer any questions. I would encourage you to check out our project website at chugachway.com. And certainly you can reach out to me at any time. My work email is there. And then our project email is transportationelements@chugachway.com. So if you think of something after tonight, feel free to reach out to us.
Great, thank you, Lakita. And so are you seeking comments right now on those different alternatives?
Yeah, if people have comments or questions, I'm happy to answer those now or take that.
I don't mean now. I mean, are you?
Yeah.
Is that what
yes.
you're collecting comments on? Great.
Yes, please.
Okay. Well, because we are low on time and that took 10 minutes for the presentation, I'm not going to take questions now, but I will roll into our next steps as a council. Our executive board wants to put together a Spenard Corridor Plan Task Force, and this would be taking the place of these different work groups we've been creating around different transportation related projects. We would create a work group, and then we would work on comments that we could bring to the council for discussion and approval. And we would just like to have a kind of a standing task force so that we could have volunteers get together, look at those alternatives, see how they align with the different plans and visions that we have, especially within the corridor plan, and come up with proposed comments for the council. And just have this be a work group. And it's called the Spenard Corridor Plan Task Force, literally in the Spenard Corridor Plan. It's one of the first steps for implementation. So this would just be putting those recommendations into practice. And it would be an opportunity for us to invite some of the folks on the different projects to also present and get into the nitty-gritty questions about what these different alternatives mean. And so I'm going to just pause now because we would be able to talk about the Chugach Way project, the Spenard Road project. We had a presentation last month. We haven't submitted comments as a council on that. Cameron just mentioned the capital projects for the council area, which are parks, trails, roads as well. And then there's also other citywide projects like the Metropolitan Transportation Plan 2050 is going to be worked on now. And so there are all of these different planning documents that come out quite a bit. And so having a task force, we'd be able to meet outside of our council meetings and then bring different resolutions or comments to the council for adoption. So that's the direction I think we'd like to go as an executive board. And so I wanted to bring it to the group and just ask folks who are interested to raise your hand or put your information into the chat, and then we can get that group meeting pretty regularly, because I know that we could have tons of discussion about what Lakita just presented on Chugach Way, but unfortunately we don't have enough time in our full group meetings, and so we could dig into that in our task force meetings. So thank you so much for that. It was really interesting, and I'm gonna have to figure out which oasis or wandering I would like best, and appreciate that presentation and just the thought that's been going on behind that project. So thank you. All right, so please join our task force. It's going to be so fun, even though it's going to talk a lot about transportation projects. And I do want to make sure that we take 10 minutes to have Scott share his project about the pot shop. I'm not seeing Scott's name on our list. Is Scott here this evening? Okay, I don't think he's here. That means we have a little bit more time, but that just puts us kind of back on time. So thank you, Lakita. Thanks everybody for joining our task force. You can put your information in the chat, wave at us, send an email to spenardcc@gmail.com if you have questions. Okay, so with that, and since we don't have Scott, we will just go ahead and move into trick or treat recap with Meg and then community announcements. So go ahead, Meg.
Yeah, hi everyone. My name is Meg, and I was part of helping plan our wonderful second annual Trick or Treat Fish Creek event, as well as a lot of our neighbors that are here in the call. Just a big thank you to everyone who helped out, or even if you personally weren't able to help out spreading the word, getting other folks connected. It was a really fun event. I have no idea how many kids showed up, hundreds, 400 more. We ran out of candy. My husband had to go to the store to buy more candy mid-event, which is a good sign, I think. And we're already excited for next year. And I know I'll definitely be involved. So if you're interested in getting involved, you can shoot me a message and I can keep your contact info in the notes for next year. Or if you have ideas on how to make it bigger and better. We are already excited for next year, but ultimately just a huge thank you to everyone who helped out. I know Irene, Tani, Lindsay were big ones here, and I know lots of other people. Shauna, I see your name too for helping in the planning and having a booth. So thank you everyone. Sorry if I didn't list everyone, but it was a great event.
Yeah, thank you. And there are lots of folks who were part of the event. We talked a lot about it before this meeting started, but other folks joined. So Shauna, Celia, thank you so much for hosting stations. Karen, Margaret, Irene, there were so many, but if you have anything you want to share with the group, now's the time.
I had one fun moment, and I'm Shauna, for those of you who I don't know, where this mom came over and she said, "Do you live near here?" I said, "Yeah, right over there." And she said, "Lucky." All right, that's a new Spenard thing. It's not something people used to say. So I thought that was a big deal. It was just the nicest event we could have possibly had, and people loved it. Thank you.
Awesome, thank you. That was a really big neighborhood event that we pulled off, and it really helped energize us for more. So with that, we can move into neighborhood and community announcements. So now's the time for just a couple minute announcement. If you're new to the council, if you have issues or events or things going on in your neck of the woods, now's the time to share. Anyone? Allison, welcome.
Well, I would just say it won't last long, but take advantage of walking up and down the railroad tracks between Spenard Builders Supply and Spenard Road, because the Muni went out there and had a team of women clean it up, and it's fantastic. So enjoy it while it's there.
Thanks, Allison. The social trails through Spenard that someday maybe will turn into real multi-use trails. Irene.
Yeah, I just wanted to, is it okay if I just read the letter that we got from the Anchorage Park Foundation thanking us for our donation? Beth
Yeah.
Northland sent it.
Can you do it just brief?
Yeah, so it just says, "Dear Spenard Community Council, thank you for investing in Anchorage through the Anchorage Park Foundation. Your gift of $2,000 given on the 8th of October will support the Spenard Beach Park improvements. As a supporter of Anchorage Park Foundation, you join others who are actively making a positive impact on the parks and trails that strengthen our community, economy, and quality of life. We will continue to ensure our citywide park and trail infrastructure connects with more neighborhoods, improves safety, and updates playgrounds to be inclusive, benefiting children and families." This last statement I thought was very interesting because I don't think anybody usually talks too much about this. Your passion to improve city green spaces and create happier, healthier lives is behind every action we take. We truly appreciate your generosity and thank you for your investment. So there's some studies that have been done that I've just heard in other places, that the more parks people have, the more connections with bicycle trails and walking. People are healthier, they're happier. And when we hear things, I think Cameron mentioned or someone else about the mental health issues in our community, not only Spenard, but just Anchorage and Alaska in general. We know the dark doesn't help a lot. Yeah, and we feel isolated. And of course, pandemic just, double whammied everybody's mental health. But just that activity. And now we know that the Spenard Beach Park, which is a historic place, I know I've mentioned it to people before, that's where I learned how to swim. Even when the planes were going by and there was oil, somehow I survived that. But I think I did talk to someone at the park, and they were going to send an update to you, Lindsay, about how that's going. And we're working with Turnigan also. So sometimes I remember coming to a meeting years ago where somebody was upset because they were going to make another park in the city and we don't need any more parks. And I thought, wow, he wasn't happy. So I thought he needs a park to get his attitude a little bit better, but that was several years ago. So I think Anchorage is very impressive with that. And I do have an Airbnb near the airport, and I have people that they walk around Northwood Park. Unfortunately, is a little over the top messy right now, but people comment for this size of town in our neighborhood near the airport. What a great location. And we are lucky. The views are great, connection is great. So anyway, we got a nice thank you for that $2,000 donation.
Yeah, thanks, Irene. And just for some background, that's a challenge grant that we've been working with Turnigan Community Council on, but they are the lead on that project update. And we accounted for that gift probably last year or the year before, and just finally made the contribution. It's a long process, but slowly but surely that project will move forward. All right, I'm going to turn it over to Tani and then Karen.
Yeah, it's not something, I guess it's a community announcement, but I really want to encourage folks to get out and testify or at the assembly meeting on Tuesday, or I'm sorry, next Tuesday. They keep moving dates around because the budget, it is a significant issue and it is an immediate issue, but it's also really concerning at what is essentially deferred maintenance and deferred costs. So for those of you who are concerned about your property taxes, while it may appear that you might save money on your property taxes this year, what we know looking at it is that that's really deferred costs on us later. And it's just, I know that the meetings can be difficult, but you can submit your testimony by 5 p.m. on this Friday. You can also send emails to all of the assembly members at once. And you can, of course, sign up to do phone testimony. And I'll be there in person. So if you need a friendly face, and you can sit near me 6 feet away, but please.
All right, thanks, Tani. Go ahead, Karen.
Thanks. Let me lower my hand here. Yeah, I was just going to say also it was about the budget and just kind of following up on what Irene was talking about with the benefits of Greenbelt. I mean, the feasibility study that we're asking for an amendment in the budget for is going to help us actually be able to move that forward on the Fish Creek Greenbelt, and as well as daylighting the creek. So I was just going to encourage people to also testify on that.
Cool, thank you. Great. Well, I don't see other announcements, but I see Arena, which is the fun time. It is door prize time. And Arena is our treasurer. And like I said, we are trying to account for expenses for this past month, also just at the bottom of our agenda. So we'll have more of a treasurer's report as we go. So take it away, Arena.
Sure. I guess I'll give the brief treasurer's report for those of you who haven't checked it out at the bottom of our agenda. So as Lindsay said, Trick or Treat Fish Creek, amazing success. We contributed $206 for that and ran $50 worth of Facebook ads to make that a success. Last month, as you know, we gave out 2 $25 gift cards, as we will continue doing this month. So we spent $306.28 and no more. We're way under budget. We're still rolling. Any questions on that before we go to the fun part? Awesome. Okay, so thank you for everybody who filled out the attendance form. We do have this rule that if you have won in the past 6 months, you can't win again for the next 6 months. And not all of you fill out the attendance form. So the chances to win are fantastic. There are only 11 eligible people here. So I'm just going to run a random number generator. We're giving out 2 gift cards. They will be $25 to Writer's Block. Classic fave. Okay. Let's go. First number is 7. Also, if you've won already and I call your name, be honest.
Yeah.
So
Nice.
first card goes to Tani.
Oh,
Yay, Tani.
Oh my gosh, I'm so excited right now, you guys. I finally won after years of being involved. And for the
Yay.
writer's block.
No more for the next 6 months. Okay. It's a really good shot to win the next one. Okay, the next one is 1. Who signed in first? Looks like we have Michelle. Is Michelle here? No?
Do you mean me?
Yes.
Oh, Michelle, good.
Woo!
Me?
Yay!
It's my
Congrats.
first time winning too.
Yay!
Great.
And if you can just message me your email address, that would be great. And we'll send those off. Congratulations for everyone who's won. Next month, don't forget to fill out the sign-in sheet if you haven't won in the past 6 months, because we'll be doing this again.
Great, thank you. And we may have benevolent donor to report on based on the chat. But that's all we have for tonight's meeting. Our next meeting will be Wednesday, December 1st. Somehow we're already to November. It's very quickly approaching 2022. I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
Move to adjourn.
A second.
Thanks, Tom. Thanks, Irene. We're adjourned. Thanks, everybody, for joining. Really appreciate it.
Great job, Lindsay. Thank you.
Yep, as always, fun. Thank you, everybody.